Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in to the first rousing rendition of Libservative in 2024. Intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. He, as always, is Corey Walsh with Bell the Bodysnatcher on the ones and twos.
And he's Dan Griffin.
We got here's why we have a good episode today. I think we have a good episode every week, but I feel like this one's going to be particularly good because I think both of us, in fact, all three of us, did what most sane people should do when they're in the world of politics, whether it's just a hobby of yours or whether you are at least attempting to make it a profession like Corey, myself, and Bell. You really should just take some time off during the holidays or take some time off while you're on vacation. And I think we all three of us kind of did that. So we're playing a little bit of catch up as we do this episode. But I still think we've got some good stuff for you today. I mean, did you do that, Corey? Because I do that like that week between Christmas and New Year. I'm like,
I mentally checked out.
I dive in a little bit, but it's like very, very minimally. I'm really just focused on hanging out with friends and family and playing video games and being lazy and shooting pool and stuff I enjoy doing through that week. So we're playing a little bit of catch up as we begin the first episode of 2024. And the way you can tell is that the episode that we've done now as the last episode of the year is our kind of recap of the year and our predictions for 2024. Like we don't really talk current events at all during that episode. And I think I like that. I hope the listeners like it. If you don't, let us know because we'll change it, but probably not because it's gonna be like 6 people that are like, this is a stupid episode. Okay, don't listen. Fuck you. Bye.
You know what I've been reveling in the last week, Dan?
I don't, but you're going to tell me.
You might be able to guess by my attire. Oh my God. That game. Can we talk about that game for 1 second?
I just want to say real quick, if they could throw Jim Harbaugh in prison, and Michigan Wolverines are still going to get it done. Amen.
That's a fact. They proved it 3 times. 6 times, technically, but 3 times that counted. Oh my God, guys, I got the hiccups.
Corey's got some wicked hiccups, so we do apologize to our listening people.
I just been drinking all day. Damn.
I was drinking all day Saturday because I was texting you and Bell about the national championship semifinal game. I was like, oh, look, choke artists again. They're choking again because the last 2 you blown it.
Dude, you did. You threw the towel in like mid fourth quarter.
I did. No, before that. Well before that. Because they looked like shit. When the first play of the game, when your quarterback throws an interception. Like, let's be honest. You got really lucky that homeboy's heel was on the sideline and it ended up being called back.
Oh, my
but he threw
God.
pass.
The luck. The difference of a game mattering by 3 inches.
Michigan's missing field goals. They're missing.
Because then there was another interception, but the guy had his foot out of bounds when he jumped in to catch it. Do you remember? That was the other interception. I know there was 2 interceptions. I know. I'm sorry. Fucking hiccups, dude. We're recording at 7:40. The hiccups started at 7:37, and I was like, "Oh,
you're
fuck,
nervous.
guys! I got hiccups."
You're nervous
about what?
You're nervous.
First show of the year, Jesus.
To the start of what's. Let's be honest. Hopefully, this coming Monday, Michigan goes out and beats Washington, and we start the year with a national championship. But after that, It's going to be a shitty fucking year. And how do we know it's going to be a shitty year?
Because it's election year.
It's an election year, and we know that the two major choices are going to be Donald Trump and Joe Biden. If you thought 2020 was contentious, this is going to be, I think worse. I really believe that.
So I feel like it's going to be less, actually.
I don't know if you guys know this, but this is about an hour ago.
Mm-hmm.
They actually released a couple hundred documents pertaining to the Epstein case and the list of names. I'm going to retrieve that if I can.
Go for it. That's something we'll probably have to save for next week. I think that's something we're going to have to go through with a fine tooth, because I know that the flight logs were supposed to be coming out with a lot of redacted names and what have you. So we'll have to see what this actually says. So if you're looking at that right now,
right? Because immediately as soon as the list started coming out, I was starting to read a little bit about it, and I saw that RFK Jr. flew on the plane twice, and immediately the cognitive dissonance wheels started turning. And I'm like, well, he said he wasn't in 1993. He was with his family the whole time. And so you can go two routes with that, right? You could either throw RFK into the trash with everyone else. You could see some nuance in the flight logs. But if you give nuance to the flight logs, then all of a sudden that gives nuance to the people that you think are on the list that you immediately think are pedophiles. So like there's a little bit of...
That's kind of why. Well, that's kind of why. And I've been saying this for a while. Like, do I think that Jeffrey Epstein is a horrible person? That goes without saying. Do I think that he had high profile individuals to his island specifically for exploiting underage girls sexually? Yeah, I think that's probably the case as well. However, I also think that the reason Jeffrey Epstein was able to become so rich and become so high profile, but yet also be kind of under the radar for so long, because let's not pretend like Jeffrey Epstein was some celebrity that we all knew about in 2005, right? Because he wasn't. I think that a lot of this was the island itself, and the things that occurred on that island are strictly being used to blackmail high profile people, which is how he got so rich, which is how he got so so I guess highbrow without being necessarily high profile. So I think there is going to be a lot of nuance to this, because do I think that everybody who ever took a fucking photograph with Jeffrey Epstein is a pedophile? I think that's fucking ridiculous, because I think, in fact, I know, I'm not going to get into your guys' personal lives, but I know that we've all associated at some point probably with a pedophile in our lives, right? We all have. We didn't know it. But it's like, because I took a picture with a pedophile 20 years ago, does that make me somehow a horrible person? Does that make me a pedophile?
No, and you're right.
Does that make me somebody who needs to be investigated?
That's kind of what I...
Go ahead, Bill.
I said that's what I came in to say. You can't assume that everybody on the list is just guilty.
Yeah, and
really.
And that's why
that would be wrong.
I'll finish with this. I'll finish with this, Corey, and then I'll let you go. Like, RFK Jr. has said multiple times, I think not multiple, but a couple of different times, that he had been on Jeffrey Epstein's plane.
Not to the island, but on the plane. On
the plane, right? And he's given the story of the couple of times he was on that plane.
Me and my wife and my kids, we took the plane and we went fossil
He said
hunting.
why he was on there. He said that his wife had some sort of friendship or relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Like, and Jeffrey Epstein, RFK Jr. is a guy that's saying, yeah, look, this stuff all needs to be made transparent. We all need to see this. We shouldn't hold any of this.
It's interesting, right?
Away
he
from
is the only one that's on the list that's actually outspoken about releasing.
Yeah, like why would he be advocating for it? Like I feel like the first instinct is to just believe him. I mean, I don't know.
No, you're right, see. And it is. It's so that's what I'm getting at. Like, we're all of a sudden, we're everyone on the list. I had no, I don't want to say emotional attachment, but I had no dog in the race and no sort of like affection towards them. Where RFK seems like he's actually a pretty decent human being.
Except for the Israel stuff.
Except for the Israel stuff. He's acting really war hawky about stuff like that. But like before that, like Bill Gates, fuck him, he's a corporate billionaire. Bill Clinton,
BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, fuck that.
Yeah. Bill Clinton, we know he's crooked as shit and he's getting BJs in the White House, which is fine. But he also destroyed the working class and did all this sort of this shit. He's the one that fostered in the neoliberalism that created Barack Obama, that created Democrats turning their backs on the working class and starting to hang out with bankers and things like that. He's the one that fostered all that in through the .com boom. Donald
Trump, get bogged down by all the haters out there.
Donald Trump, he's on the list. So all these people, even Tom Hanks, it's just like, I don't give a shit. I like his movies. I don't care about him as an individual. But then all of a sudden RFK pops up and it's like, oh, but wait. And then you got to check your bias and you got to check your cognitive dissonance. And you go, well, wait, you can't say, oh, wait, on this one individual because you have an affinity for him, but then not give an oh, wait to all the other ones. If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
I mean, that's why I feel like
maybe there were people that had no idea hanging out with him because they didn't know that when he wasn't with you, he was a different person, because it sounds like that's the type of person he was, is influential and being hobnobbing with all these rich people. He sounds like he might have been one of those people that reflects your personality to make you like him.
Well, and I think that's was probably kind of part of the plan all along. He was going to compromise certain individuals and be able to use the compromising of those individuals to perhaps compromise other individuals.
Like Prince Charles caught dead to rights.
Not Prince Charles.
Prince Andrew.
The other one.
Sorry, Prince
Andrew. Yes.
You're right. Yeah.
But yeah, so like I think I don't. It's going to be one of those things where I don't think we're ever going to know the truth about most individuals. There might be a couple that come out and get tried and prosecuted and outed as pedophiles or whatever. But I think for the most part, it's just going to be this, well, were they or weren't they? Like basically now till the end of time, there's going to be all sorts of like YouTube influencers that are going to be like, why was this person on Jeffrey Epstein's plane? I think we're just going to see that from now to the end of time, or now until nobody cares anymore, which could be next week or it could be 10 years from now. Who knows? Where we're just going to see this constant barrage of like, there's more information on Jeffrey Epstein's
client. And that is it's not even necessarily a hot take, but to like thinking about that, right? Like we've all been friends with someone who turns out to end up being a creep later, turns out to be an asshole. They turn out to be someone who you didn't think they were. And like being rich doesn't excuse you or doesn't make you insusceptible to those type of things. And to think that just immediately, like you have everyone online foaming at the mouth that like anyone who's on that list is just dead to rights, when that might not necessarily be the story. You know how we would have found the story? If Jeffrey Epstein didn't, in quotations, wink, wink, nod, nod, know what I mean, kill himself in solitary confinement under suicide watch, we might have been able to get to the bottom of some of this stuff. But because that those loose ends were tied, no pun intended, because it might have been the tying of a knot of his own making or someone else.
Well, that's a
lot of secrets died with him.
That's another thing that's really interesting, right? So there are a lot of folks out there, and like I completely understand this.
Oh yeah,
right?
the flight logs are just the end all be all. That no matter what, if you even were in the same room as Epstein, you're a pedophile. Just
like when it comes to Epstein's death, right? Like if I were a betting man, okay, and we knew that the truth was somehow going to come out at some point. If I were a betting man, I would say that he did not kill himself. Okay. So I just want to preface. I just want to preface what I'm about to
give away the password, but my Wi-Fi's name is still Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself.
So, I want to preface what I'm about to say with that. There are far too many like goofy pundits out there that sit there and go, "There's a 0% chance that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself." There's not a 0% chance. It doesn't look good. It looks really fucking suspicious. But Yes, it really could have been that the cameras fucked up, and that the guards fell asleep. That is a possibility. How big is that possibility? I'd put it at about 10%.
Yeah,
but it is a possibility.
About the same percentage as Ohio State winning the national championship next Monday.
Well, that's 0%. So that's not right.
Yeah, I know. I did that on purpose.
But I'm just saying, like when people get so caught up in the the dive. Let's dive into what really happened here. They lose track of the fact that yes, it doesn't look good, and yes, we need to know exactly what happened. However, there is still a small chance that Jeffrey Epstein actually killed himself.
You know what I also think is really funny about the whole Epstein thing? That all of these massive celebrities, right? All of the people who everyone looked up to, like whether it's like if you're into looking up to like technocrats like Bill Gates, or you're big into celebrities like Kevin Spacey and Tom Hanks, or if you're big into politics and the royal family like Prince Andrew or the Clintons,
they're all on there.
Well, are on the list. Joe Biden's not. There's no way you're letting you on this plane, Jack.
Because they already knew. They already knew.
Yeah, they're like, you're going to be weird smelling people. Go ride a fucking train, doofus. And he's like, oh, come on, man. He's on the tarmac going, come on, man.
If anybody's going to get us caught, it's you, Uncle Joe. Anyway, Corey, why don't you start us off
making light of human trafficking is fun, isn't it, Dan?
And
before we move on,
humor.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found
called
Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe.
I started that a little late. Sorry.
Yeah, you blew it.
Sorry to all. What did you learn in school this week, Corey?
Oh, man.
You don't even know.
I'm going to save the other one for a conversation so we can dive a little deeper on him. But you know what I learned this week? That cats suck. And it's kind of piggybacking off of Bell's topic a couple weeks ago.
I was going to say, what is it with you guys and cats? What are you
Because they fucking
Googling
suck,
during
Dan.
the week? What are you guys
constant
researching during the week?
It's literally the Ohio State versus Michigan type shit. It's cats versus dogs, man. And dogs are better than cats. And right now, we're finding out that after I close this ad, kids with cats have more than double the risk of developing schizophrenia. And that apparently, so there's this drug, there's this disease, it's called toxoplasmosis.
Toxoplasmosis.
And when you have a kid, that is something that the doctors always tell you, like if you're a mom and you're pregnant, don't deal with the cat. Litter. Yeah, keep away from the kitty litter. Don't deal with any of that. But more and more studies are coming out, finding out that kids in households who have cats are way more likely to develop schizophrenia because of this disease that's just riddled in their shit. And we just let them shit in boxes in the house.
This sounds like a correlation versus causation thing.
No, I'm on so
I grew up with cats. I don't have schizophrenia.
Yeah, anyone who has schizophrenia is going to say that, Dan.
Okay.
So I found a dumbed down article about this because like the other articles are on NIH, and they're published articles, and no one's going to read a published article that's peer reviewed, Dan. So we read the people who read it and get their opinion.
I think Liberty Twitcher's got the answer here.
What do you say?
That's because the type of people who like cats are more likely to be the type of people who have schizo tendencies.
Yeah, Dan. Well, to be fair though, Dan does have 2 dogs now.
No, I don't like cats. I had a couple as a kid. I like some cats. Like other people's cats can sometimes be cool, but I don't really have an interest in owning one.
Yeah, you're not playing with their shit, so you're okay.
Yeah, when's the last time I changed a litter box? I was in my teens, 15 or 16 maybe.
When was the first time?
I don't know. It's probably 6, 7, 8 years old. I don't know.
Jesus fucking Christ, Dan's got schizophrenia.
Toxoplasmosis.
Toxoplasmosis. But yeah, no, there's just a bunch of cat ownership and schizophrenia-related disorders and psychotic-like experiences. A systematic review and meta-analysis was published in Schizophrenia Bulletin. The team details the connections between youth cat ownership and later-in-life schizophrenia-related diagnosis. It makes me nervous, Dan, because you know how many fucking times I changed the litter box as a kid? It was one of my chores.
I think you're good, man. I think if you're going to be a schizophrenic, you'd be one by now.
You think I'm good, Corey? Yeah, I think you're okay.
just keep taking psilocybin. You'll be just fine.
Does psilocybin fight schizophrenia?
I probably fights everything else, according to Nick Gillespie, anyway. What I learned in school this week, Corey, is I learned that it is actually easier to change the worldview.
Liberty Twitcher goes, cats got into my soft water tank and peed in it, and I showered in cat pee tinged water for months. I'm toast.
Yeah, he's fucked. Or she. I don't know. What I learned in school this week, Corey, was that it is easier to change the worldview of a Klansman. Yes, a Klansman. Than it is to change the worldview of a shitlib identitarian.
Ooh. That's actually a really hot take that has a lot of weight to it. You're right.
Is it a little based?
A little based.
So here's why I feel that way. Because I was actually, I can't remember what made me do this, but I was looking into the work once again of Daryl Davis, right? You're familiar with Daryl Davis. We've talked about him before on the show. Daryl Davis is a musician who has taken it upon himself. I should say a black musician. And the only reason I mention his race is because it is actually relevant to the story. Daryl Davis is a black musician who has taken it upon himself to turn Klansmen away from the Klan. And he has done such a good job of it that he has a multitude of Klansmen's robes that Klansmen give to him when he has essentially convinced
them from the cult to
come away from the Klan. And if you tried to do that with an identitarian, phony liberal shitlib, they wouldn't even bother to have the conversation with you.
They'd shout you down.
They're not going to have a conversation with you with regards to why their worldview is wrong, yet a Klansman will have a conversation with a man like Daryl Davis.
With a black man.
And not agree. And Daryl has mentioned this a multitude of times in various interviews that he's done. Like, it doesn't just happen overnight. He doesn't just turn a Klansman in one conversation.
He doesn't just yell at them, "You're a racist," and they're like, "You're right,
exactly.
Take my robes."
You're right, take my robes. He has conversations with them.
Like, if that only worked.
And through nuanced conversation and sometimes debate, eventually these Klansmen come around to realizing that their worldview is bullshit. You're not going to get that with a shitlib identitarian.
No.
The minute you say something that they disagree with, or the minute you try to convince them of something about their worldview being wrong, they're going to shut you down. They're going to call you a bigot. They're going to call you a racist. How do you change the worldview of somebody like that?
You just shut them down. You just keep telling them that. No, because I've been in those conversations. Like, I've had, I would say 90% of my conversations that I'm talking with someone that has an opposing political view of me, most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, if I like minimalize the conversation to a class issue that, like, no, guess what? Our personal ideologies, we may disagree, but in a country like ours, we can afford to disagree. But when it comes down to it, it's you and I in the same tax bracket against the top brass who is out there to fuck you and I both, and they're up there with their marionette strings to intentionally keep us divided. Most of the times they get it. The only time that I have that argument turns into like something nasty is with a lib. Immediately my white privilege.
Not a lib, not any lib, just the shit libs.
The shit libs. Yeah.
The identitarians.
It immediately goes to my white privilege, and it immediately goes to me being a man, not knowing what it's like to be anyone else in this world. And it's like, no, I get that you're like, I get that I haven't walked in your shoes, but I am very open and try to be very perspective about the situation that you're in. But what I'm saying still is valid to a person that's you or me, regardless of our skin color. When it comes to all of the Democrats and all the Republicans fucking making it to where we have to work more hours for less pay, and all these different things. But it's always the shit lib that just says I have white privilege.
Mm-hmm. Because
guess what? And that shit lib that's typically saying that to me is typically also white.
Or even if they're not white, they're generally somebody who's more privileged than you are.
Yeah.
With regards to where they grew up, how they grew up.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that there's nuance to it, right? Like, yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I'm a white male. I'm at the supremacy of the hierarchy in the country, I guess. But I still grew up eating government cheese in the silver cans that said pork on them with no company label. It was just a little black pig that said pork. I'm getting presents from the local church for Christmas.
Yeah, the ones that are the worst,
brought these, not Santa, Dan.
the ones that are the worst, though,
heard, yeah,
really are like the white wine moms. They're usually not even wine moms anymore. They were for a minute. Now it's more like white childless younger folks that live in like predominantly white neighborhoods that bitch about racism in the South, like places that they've never
living
been.
In Portland, that's like 80% white.
Yeah, or like any of basically most of the suburbs of Detroit where we live. They live in these fucking box houses, these Pulte homes, these fucking McMansions,
the fucking Pulte homes, the Mosheris, the Lombardis.
Sit there and complain about racism in a place that they've never even bothered to travel to or talk to anybody about.
And when they go to Detroit, they just take 75 to Greektown and then take
yeah, 75 all the way downtown. We're like, we're like seeing like a homeless person is like a fun novelty, and you take a picture of them. You take a picture with them while you're giving them $1. Like, look at what a good person I am. Fuck you.
Oh my God. So this story would only, like, this is only funny to people from Metro Detroit, but you fucking take 75, spit out on Jefferson, park at the Greektown Casino, take the monorail.
The people mover?
Yeah. Take it to Cobo Hall for the auto show, and then you go, yeah, I go downtown. What?
I go to Detroit all the time. I go to the casinos. I go to the occasional Tigers game.
I monorail the whole way there.
I make sure I plaster all over social media the pictures that I take with the homeless people while I'm giving them $50.
Hashtag Detroit versus everybody.
Yeah, or a McDonald's cheeseburger. Like, fuck you, Chloe. Go back to Bloomfield.
Hey, I will say, though, that every time I've gone to Greektown, every time I've walked outside, there is at least 20 to 30 people fighting. Right in the middle of the street. Every time.
But it's usually fucking drunk suburbanites fighting each other.
Yeah. Go to Royal Oak, and Royal Oak is the same fucking way. You know what little Main Street downtown area isn't like that, though? It's Ferndale. Ferndale is not like that. Ferndale's very happy. Everyone gets along.
There's a lot of this.
No, that's West Hollywood.
Oh man.
Yeah, I've been in West Hollywood, and West Hollywood is a fucking blast because at like 3 a.m., like some of the funnest people to be around, which is the LGBTQ community, when they
only
get drunk,
Metro Detroiters will get the joke that I just did with my hands, and that's fine.
Right.
Because it's probably for the best.
But West Hollywood's the same way. Like the LGBTQ community is some of the funnest community to be around. They take the jokes, they love them.
Oh, way to blow it.
Give you jokes, they have a riot. But 3 a.m. comes and it's a fucking show because they're all out there fighting. But it's not like frat boy fights. It's just I love just like Ferndale's a blast. I love Ferndale.
Don't get bogged down by all the haters out there.
That's right. Thank you, George. Shall we actually? We're 30 minutes in, and we haven't even started the fucking episode, which I think is great. I think those are some of our best episodes. We have to get into this one first.
Wow, we have
Corey.
someone on Twitter watching.
Oh,
X. X.
Oh, that's good.
It's fucking Elon himself.
He wants to sign us like Tucker. Harvard President Claudine Gay resigned. It was earlier today as we record this on January 3rd, 2024. And the only reason I want to talk about this story is because it just speaks to so much that is wrong with universities and in particular rich universities like a Harvard. You're familiar with this story, right?
A classic story, Dad, of elitism all of a sudden facing the reality of reality and the rest of the world.
Oh, it's just a classic tale. So, shit, I lost one of. Oh no, here it is. Anyway, there was a New York Post piece from earlier today that kind of breaks down exactly what happened, and the reason for why Claudine Gay was essentially shit canned, but really resigned. So, embattled Harvard president Claudine Gay is fending off accusations that she plagiarized numerous portions of her 1997 PhD thesis in direct violation of Harvard's academic integrity policies. Documents obtained by journalist Chris Rufo. Listen, I understand it's Chris Rufo. I got my issues with him, but if he's telling facts, let's listen. So here we go. So Chris Rufo and Chris Burnett posted on X, juxtaposed political scientist Gay's paper with either works of several authors and academic scholars, which in some passages are replicated nearly word for word. In one example, taken from page 12 of Gay's dissertation, Rufo points out that the now Harvard president seemingly, quote, lifts an entire paragraph, end quote, from a 1990 paper by Lawrence Bobo and Franklin Gilliam. Appearing
from like the University of Wisconsin or something.
Appearing in the original paper, published 7 years before Gay wrote her thesis, is the phrase, quote, blacks in high black empowerment areas, as indicated by control of the mayor's office, are more active than either blacks living in low empowerment areas or their white counterparts of comparable socioeconomic status. That is absolutely word for word lifted from the Bobo Gilliam paper.
So
however,
Biden,
she did credit them, but if you go into Harvard's bylaws for plagiarism, you can take things from another paper, but you have to put those things in your own words, or at the very least, which is
quotations with a footmark.
But that's something that you learn in fucking public high school about what is not plagiarism when you're learning how to cite a paper.
Yeah, Dan, all right, I'm not, so real quick, I'm not a Harvard person or anything like that. This is basically me on high school education and some community college. But if you do a quote, if you do numbers or dates, or anything that's factual, you cite it.
Yes,
right?
And
do I sound like I know what I'm talking about? Like,
yes, and
dates, numbers, quotes, cite them.
So there are
always. If you think
cases,
it has to be cited, cite it. Sorry,
there are cases of her doing so, but also taking the verbiage verbatim from other, and then there are also cases of her not citing anything at all. So this is I'm not going to read the entire New York Post piece. Like, this is why she is stepping down, is over accusations of plagiarism. So let me bring up another article here. I read something similar to this, but Bell shared this with us earlier today, and I thought it was so much better than the one that I read. So there is a piece in the AP from today entitled "Plagiarism Charges Downed Harvard's President. A Conservative Attack Helped to Fan the Outrage." This is fucking amazing.
AP, you're supposed to be the standard.
So this is by Colin Bingley and Mariah Billingit. I don't know how to say her name. Billingit. Ballingit. Billingit. That's Billingit. That's what we're going with. Ballingit. I don't know how to say her name. Anyway, American higher education has long viewed plagiarism as a cardinal sin. Accusations of academic dishonesty have ruined the careers of faculty and undergraduates alike. The latest target is Harvard President Claudine Gay, who resigned Tuesday. Okay, I guess she resigned officially yesterday. In her case, the outrage came not from her academic peers, but her political foes, led by conservatives who put her career under intense scrutiny.
Oh, because conservatives go to Harvard too? What the fuck?
No. It's because conservatives are the ones that are putting her plagiarism under scrutiny.
Oh, those goddamn conservatives use a meritocracy.
Yeah. So reviews by Harvard found multiple shortcomings in Gay's academic citations, including several instances of, quote, duplicative language, which is using verbatim, right? The university concluded that the errors, quote, were not considered intentional or reckless, end quote, and didn't rise to misconduct. When the fuck is plagiarism ever like reckless or like intentional? Does anybody intentionally play? I don't think anybody intentionally plagiarizes something. Maybe people do.
Yeah, no, because Joe Biden literally did that in the 80s.
Did he do it intentionally? I doubt 100%.
it. I bet you
think
did.
So?
I think so.
You could be right.
Because he had to come out and like he had to drop from the race and all that shit. Like it was kind of a big deal. Like this is in the 80s before the internet.
I always feel like plagiarism is something that like you read something from a paper as you're doing your own paper, and then it comes back to you later. At least this is the way I've always caught myself doing it, even when I was writing papers. Like I would read something that I thought was brilliant, and it would like come back to me later as I was writing the paper. And then I would be like, where did I get that from?
Yeah.
And hopefully catch myself. I've probably plagiarized shit because I thought it was my own original thought. I feel like that's how plagiarism happens a lot. When you read something and you think it's brilliant, you kind of think eventually you think it's your own original thought. Maybe I'm the goofball. I don't know. Anyway, conservatives zeroed in on Gay amid backlash over her congressional testimony about anti-Semitism on campus. Her detractors charged that Gay was who has a PhD in government, was a professor at Harvard and Stanford, and headed Harvard's largest division before being promoted, got the top job in large part because she is a black woman. Christopher Rufo, a conservative activist who helped orchestrate the effort against Gay, celebrated her departure as a win in his campaign against elite institutions of higher education. On X, formerly known as Twitter, he wrote, quote, "scalped," end quote. As if Gay was a trophy of violence, invoked a gruesome practice taken up by white colonists who sought to eradicate Native Americans and also used by some tribes against their enemies. Do I think Christopher Rufo was doing this in good faith? No. I absolutely don't. However, Gay dug her own grave when she couldn't answer simple questions in a congressional hearing, which, by the way, we will get to. When you give the answers that she gives based on whether or not Intifada should be considered harassment. And there actually is a gray area there that maybe we'll get to at some point during the show. But all three of these Ivy League and top tier presidents, none of them could speak to calling for the genocide of Jews being considered harassment on campus.
Right. And so that's where so never mind.
So Chris Rufo dug into them.
Yeah. And found out she's a plagiarist. She's just copying other people's work, which makes jobs a hell of a lot easier when you just copy China intellectual property theft. But so when it comes to the whole gay thing, first off, what I want to say is I love her last name for this conversation. When they were being questioned about all of this because everything going on in the court in the country or whatever, and when she's questioned about speech, because remember there hasn't been any actionable offenses, it's always been about speech, and it's just speech. And you got a bunch of kids on the campus running around, calling for Intifada and this stuff of this because they're a bunch of dumb fucking kids. Which, let me check the calendar of the year. It's always dumb fucking kids on college campuses, whether it's DUIs, having a gun in their car, drinking too much, or anything. It's always dumb fucking kids on college campuses doing dumb fucking things, right?
And if I can piggyback on that statement, Corey, when you have college kids, particularly today's college kids, which I'm sorry, like maybe this is just me getting older, but I feel like they're just dumber than they were when I was in school.
That's the adults in the room letting them be dumber.
But when
that's what I was going to get to.
That's a great point. When they are the representation for your cause, when college kids are the voice for your cause, you know that it's either A, completely wrong, and in this case, it's not, but B, it is either A, completely wrong, or B, it is the lowest common denominator of representation that you can possibly have for your cause. Because we both have empathy for the folks in Gaza, and we understand the protests that are taking place. But when your representation is college kids, get the fuck out of here. Anyway, go ahead. I hope you didn't lose your train of thought.
No, I didn't. So here's the thing. Her answer, like now when it comes to the context of when she said it, was fucking shitty. But what the answer she had was literally the answer that college deans would have had since like the 20s or the 30s or the 40s. And it would have been fine. When they said, is this speech on your campus hate speech and is this violence and is this harassment? All of these deans said, well, it depends on the context.
University presidents, even more
university
than
presidents. University presidents saying it depends on the context. Now that answer would have been pristine in the 60s. In the 70s, in the 80s. But the problem is as soon as student loans and the colleges realized that it was a gambit that they could just scheme and con and make each one of those students that are out there protesting, that's not an individual student. That's $250,000. That's $100,000. That's $75,000. Those are all price tags of that protest isn't students marching. That's $6 million marching. Okay. And when that $6 million roughly 10 years ago started crying about microaggressions and safe spaces and all of these different crazy things, the presidents of these colleges realized that they had an ability to either gain another 6 million or lose another 6 million. So they kowtowed to that 6 million, and they sat here with this money and let this money dictate their policies to where they had to create safe spaces, and they had to create this idea of hate speech and microaggressions And it worked great for a while because there's a lot of minorities that people had sympathy for in our country based on our own country's historical atrocities.
Don't forget the most important one, Corey. Words are violence.
Yeah, words are violence.
It's weird too. It's weird too, right? Because
silence is violence.
Words are violence, and also silence is violence. So which is it?
And so they sat here and built up this shit just to cater to these students, and then it got turned on its head. And then when it got turned on its head and they didn't want to turn on their millions of dollars in students, they went back to their policies before they let these students dictate what was happening on the colleges.
Now
and said,
we care about free
it's
speech.
Context. And, so sometimes, it's, speech, sometimes it's in context. And everyone is just like, the fuck did you just say? and their head was rolled. And they all got fired. To where it's the snake eating its own tail, and I fucking love seeing it because I hope me not having the Harvard PhD or the Harvard fucking doctorate, I'm hoping that they all fucking see this too. And it's almost like, hey, maybe it is a little bit of c'est la vie, live and let live. Maybe we just don't say anything, let the government come in and shoot our students. Kent State. But that's a long time ago. But still, what I'm getting at is they sat on this pedestal chasing the dollar bill because they wasn't any of the plans they made and any of the policies they made wasn't based on principle or values. It was based on the dollar bill in the very beginning. So when all of a sudden the principles and the values changed, but the dollar sign didn't change, they flip-flopped on their principles and their values, and they got their hand caught in a cookie jar.
Yeah, free speech is.
And then I also want to add that I love all the headlines and stuff. Yeah, and I love all the headlines and all of this stuff because I keep seeing NPR and stuff post, "Gay is out."
Yeah.
Is this the end of the LGBTQ movement?
Straight is back in.
Dude, I would literally piss myself laughing if they hired someone with the last name Straight just for the poetic justice of it all.
How about George? Is he still alive?
George Santos?
George Strait.
Oh, George Strait. Oh, the troubadour?
Yeah, he's still alive, right?
Oh yeah, he's out there singing about Amarillo by morning. I'm
sure he is. I'm going to continue to say. I'm going to continue with this ridiculous.
George Strait's a country singer for anyone who doesn't know.
Well, they could have looked him up, Corey. We didn't need to tell him that. I'm going to continue with this AP article because this is just fantastic. In Gay's case, many academics were troubled with how the plagiarism came to light. Never mind that it came to light. They're troubled with how it came to light, Corey, as part of a coordinated campaign to discredit Gay and force her from office, in part because of her involvement in efforts for racial justice on campus. Her resignation came after calls for her ouster from prominent conservatives, including Representative Elise Stefanik, a Harvard alumnus, and Bill Ackman, a billionaire hedge fund manager who had donated millions to Harvard. So it's like, never mind the fact that she did the thing that was wrong. The AP article is suggesting that they don't like how the wrong thing came to light
because they did it in bad faith.
It's like if I murder somebody and then somebody that the public doesn't like is the person that tells the cops that I murdered that person.
Like, oh, God damn it, Alex Jones should have just kept his mouth shut.
Yeah, I think, yeah. It's like,
if Elon Musk didn't tweet about it.
The campaign against Gay and other Ivy League presidents has become part of a broader right-wing effort to remake higher education, which has often been seen as a bastion of liberalism. Republican detractors have sought to gut funding for public universities. This is true. Roll back tenure, also true. And banish initiatives that make colleges more welcoming to students of color. Disabled students in the LGBT community.
Is that a jab at affirmative action?
It's a jab at trying to take down affirmative action.
Right. They're saying that they're trying to disparage people of color from going to the colleges.
Right.
When the percentage of minorities going to these colleges are in the top 1%, regardless of the color of their skin, the black kids and the Asian kids that are still going to these colleges are still very, very elitist.
Yes. So
regardless of the color of their skin.
So the way that is written, it makes it seem like, and I'm no conservative, you know this. Hopefully by now our listeners know this. But the way this is written, it's making it seem like doing away with affirmative action, which is something that we now know over the past 35 years just hasn't worked. And there are reasons for that, which we won't get into today, which we have on older episodes. You can go back and find those. That trying to get rid of these things and trying to get things like DEI off campus, things that we know don't work, that are demonstrating that they don't work, is somehow conflated with trying to keep people of color off of campus. Like that's what conservatives want. Conservatives want to they want it to just be all white universities. It's like, what conservative pundits, what conservative thinkers have ever said anything close to that? Like, I'm sure there are some dickheads dickheads on Twitter, whatever.
Not any conservative, but I can think of Joe Biden.
Joe Biden is, okay, that's close. Maybe Nick Fuentes.
Poor kids are just as smart, just as bright as white kids.
Just as smart. Yeah, poor kids are just as smart as white kids. So you're gonna love this part, Corey. You're gonna love this part. So Walter Bell, you can just nod. Did you read this whole article?
The whole thing.
Bringing Bell in.
Oh, you didn't read the whole thing.
I didn't read the whole entire thing. I was reading it, and then I got into another article.
I'm reading it now.
Dude, I read enough.
Bell. That is one of my biggest faults, is reading an article, but as soon as the first link pops up, you click that link, and then you start reading that article, and then that article, the first link that's hyperlinked, you click that, and you end up in this deep dive, and you get a lot of good information, but it's nowhere near the original article on what you originally planned on reading.
Well, even then, it's like, I read enough.
You read enough.
Well, it's all coming in. Walter M. Kimbrough, the former president of the historically black Dillard University, said what unfolded at Harvard reminded him of an adage from his mother, a black graduate from the University of California, Berkeley in the 1950s. As a black persona in academia, quote, "You always have to be twice, 3 times as good," he said. End quote. Quote,
which in the 50s and 60s, let's be fair,
true.
That's 100% true.
Absolutely.
Even quote, now, there's probably a grain of truth to that. You stick out.
There are going to be people, particularly if they have any inkling that the person of color is not the most qualified, who will label them a, quote, DEI hire. Like they tried to label her, Kimbrough said. Okay, I'm going to say something here. Look at her record.
She was a DEI hire.
Look at the fact that she wrote 11 papers, which I'll give her credit. That's a hell of a lot more than I've ever written. She's never written a single book.
Well, you both have written hundreds of papers. We're just not peer reviewed. Don't
Correct,
sell yourself
correct.
short, Dan.
Correct. When it comes to the standards of Harvard, her qualifications were astronomically lower than a Harvard president has ever been before. Does that mean she was hired solely based on her skin color? I don't think that there's any way we can necessarily prove that, but that is a legitimate question that could be asked.
Right. And it sucks because he almost sees it, right? He almost sees it to where
he does see it. That's why he's saying it. He does see it.
Right, where
he's in denial about it.
Yeah, exactly. Because like when you look at like black people who are in seats of power, like Barack Obama, he didn't get to the place he was because of his skin color, but he got there because of his like connections and things like that. He ended up being a piss poor president because he was hooked up with the banks. But then you look at someone like Ketanji Brown Jackson, who, when you look at her rulings on things, she's sided with the conservatives. She's sided with the liberals. She's gone back and forth. She is turning out to be a decent Supreme Court justice. But do you remember when she was actually being brought into the Supreme Court?
She was called a DEI.
Stripper of her Harvard degree, stripper of all of her accolades. She's the first Black Supreme Court woman.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind all the shit she's worked for her entire life and how hard she's worked.
So you're right. That is a good point. We have gotten to a point now where the debate about DEI has gotten so toxic that I'm sitting here openly admitting to everybody as a white man, which I guess makes me a bigot, that DEI is a terrible policy. It doesn't fucking work. There's no merit based on it. But the other side of that coin is this, that when you actually do hire somebody who is of a diverse skin color or religion or sexual orientation that actually is qualified, you're going to have these goofy fucking conservative grifters that are going to come out and say, well, it's just a DEI hire. Like, it's so fucking
because the DEI shit was shoved down their throats.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you call it? The boy who cried diversity? I don't know what you call it. But it's just another example of why DEI is so toxic and why it doesn't work and why it's such a problem.
I'll tell you what, Dan, of the tens, if not hundreds of Black people I know, none of them give a shit that there is a Black president of Harvard.
No.
And it's maybe because we're all a little bit poor and middle class and lower middle class, but we don't give a shit that a representative represents the color of someone, because guess what? They could be black, brown, purple, blue, green, pink, doesn't fucking matter. These elitists who are a different skin color being put into elitist positions do not change the day-to-day living for anyone that isn't an elitist. Other than being able to go, look, things are getting better for you. There's someone that looks like you there. And they're like, yeah, I'm still struggling paycheck to paycheck. This isn't bettering my life whatsoever.
So here's
God damn, does it look good on paper?
John Pilasaro, a former interim college president who now works for the Margulis Center for Applied Ethics, said instances of plagiarism deserve to be evaluated individually, and that it's not always so cut and dried. Then why the fuck does Harvard have policies on it? If it's not always so cut and dried, why do they have policies on it? It says, quote, you're looking for whether there is intentionality to mislead or inappropriately borrow other people's ideas in your work. Pilasaro said, quote, or was there an honest mistake? I think cutting and pasting full paragraphs from other people's works is probably
pre-AI.
I don't know. Pre-AI. It doesn't look good. Without commenting on the merits of the allegations against Gay, President Irene Mulvey, the American Association of University Professors, said that she fears plagiarism investigations could be weaponized to pursue a political agenda. Quote, there is a right-wing political attack on higher education right now, which feels like an existential threat to the academic freedom that has made American higher education the envy of the world. No. There is a conservative critique of higher education and an absolutely legitimate one.
Bell, real quick, just Google how many colleges and universities there are in America for me real fast. Because I got somewhere to go with this. But
this article is almost over. I got two more paragraphs, Corey. She worries Gay's departure will put a new strain on college presidents, in addition to their work courting donors, policymakers, and alumni. Presidents are supposed to protect faculty from interference so that they can research unimpeded. Quote, for presidents to be taken down like this, it does not bode well for academic freedom, she said. Quote, I think it'll chill the climate for academic freedom, and it may make university presidents less likely to speak out against this inappropriate interference for fear of losing their jobs or be targeted. That last paragraph and the unbelievable fucking irony of it made me laugh till I pissed my pants about 2 hours ago when I first read this. You want to talk about academic freedom? You want to talk about mob pressure forcing her out? Like, why don't you have a conversation with J.K. Rowling about mob pressure, both coming from campuses and elsewhere. When you have a conversation with Alex Jones, when you have
Ben
a conversation
Shapiro.
with Joe Rogan, about mob and targeted fucking pressure.
Yeah.
They're finally,
Barry
they are
Weiss,
finally,
Jimmy Dore.
this is,
You could go down the list
Barry
of
Weiss, Jimmy Dore,
100
you could go down the
people.
list. This is the absolute epitome of them actually realizing what ideologies are being pushed on college campuses, how toxic they can be. Because as you said earlier, Corey, and it's a phrase that we've used a multitude of times on this show, the snake is finally eating its own tail.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it.
And he goes, this is an attack on higher education. That is the most elitist statement. And this is why I asked Bell for how many colleges there are in our country. There are 3,982 degree granting post-secondary schools in our country. But yet it's interesting to me that only 3 of them are coming under pressure. And they are the most elitist schools who are the top 1 of the top 1% who are now seeing their ivory towers being tainted and being attacked because it's being exposed that it's all just grandstanding and virtue signaling.
You want to know, and we can wrap it up with this.
Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like
it absolutely makes sense what you're saying.
Like, you know what? Like my community college right now isn't being harassed or attacked by some conservative group.
Yeah. No,
the college that like my actual like college that I attended for a week before I couldn't afford it
it's
anymore.
Funny because you're wearing a Michigan hat. You're wearing a Michigan hat, and
I'm talking about community college. But Michigan doesn't deal with this shit. That's another prestigious university that
they do, not to this degree. I know enough people that have gone to that university recently, and I know enough people that live in Ann Arbor. It's there. Like the DEI shit is definitely there. But it doesn't really matter. We're rooting for the football team.
The sports and academics are very 2 different things, and that's a fact.
Absolutely, they're absolutely different.
Maybe Harvard should just get a better football team, and no one will stop talking shit about them.
Do you want to know the best part about this? Like the most ironic and in some ways funny part about this? Claudine Gay is getting off easy, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. In 3 weeks,
you about to bring up Boston College and Weinstein?
No.
Oh. Okay.
In 3 weeks, nobody's going to be talking about this. That's number 1.
Not at all.
So please listen to this. So that's number 1. Number 2 is she's still on staff at Harvard, making high 6 figures, if not low 7 figures.
You're right. She got
nothing's happening to her. Yeah, nothing's happening to her. And I don't know that I don't know.
Hold the lights. Your grip now.
But that's the thing is, like, I don't know that anything necessarily should. I don't think she's a fucking criminal. I don't think she needs to be thrown in prison or canceled for that matter, right? Which is something that the DEI folks would say if this were like a conservative person as president of a college.
No, so now you got my wheels turning, right? The answer she had about the context stuff in a flip-flop way, she could have almost been trying to correct the listing ship. And she's the one that got hammered to the cross.
So the question that she
regardless
was
of her
directly,
plagiarism.
So the question that she was asked directly wasn't the same question that the Penn president was asked, who recently resigned. I forget her name. It's slipping my mind at the moment. It doesn't really matter. She was asked.
Harvard,
she was
Penn, and what was the other one?
MIT, who's still there. The president is still there. But the question that Claudine Gay was asked had more to do with calls for global intifada and whether or not that was harassment or violated Harvard's bylaws on speech. And I'm actually going to give Claudine Gay credit for this. She was right in saying that it was context,
right,
when it comes to global intifada, because I don't want to get too into the weeds here, because a lot people don't agree on what intifada actually means. So if you look up the direct Arabic translation of what the word intifada means, I think I'm paraphrasing here, but it basically means the dog shaking off its fleas. Like that's what the word means. So you can see how that direct translation to some people could mean calling for genocide against Jews, and to other people could mean calling for a global revolution,
a reset. Yeah.
Yeah. So when she defended that point, I actually think she was right.
That's where I'm at, Dan. Where I'm at in her answer of talking about context of stuff. Context is so important that her answer wasn't terrible. It's the years of precedent set before that answer that led to that answer to where everyone went, wait. Hold on.
Now free speech matters.
All of a sudden, when it comes to the Jews, it's context. But when it came to everything else, it was safe space, hate speech, and all of this stuff. And you know what? And honestly, she might have got a bad shake because she might have got a bad intifada because because she was only in charge for what, 6 months?
July. So what is that? Yeah,
6 months. Yeah. And it's just it's mind-blowing to me that that's how it shook out. It sucks, for her, whatever. If she was in charge 10 years ago at Harvard, when and it was like, well, what do you think, this is hate speech? And she said, depends on the context. It wouldn't have been the conservatives, and it wouldn't have been the people that were like pro-Israel attacking her. It would have been the students.
But this is what you get when you force through this ideology that words are violence. But then all of a sudden the Jews are involved, and now we're changing the rules. And so that's where you have a lot of rightful people coming out and saying that, like, how the fuck is that
like that? I feel like that sounds racist or anti-Semitic. The Jews. Should you say the Jewish community?
You can say the Jews. I know a couple.
It's like the difference between saying the blacks and the African American community.
But the thing is, like, so
people of color.
When you sit there and you push this silences or this words is violence thing, and then all of a sudden, when it is kind of borderline with the Jews, now we're now we're changing the rules. Now the rules are different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, as soon as the Jews get involved, I understand what you're saying, Dan. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Know what I mean?
But no,
you're so done with me.
That's why there's a lot of this. Like, I am, but that's why there's a lot of this. That's why there's a lot of these. And it's weird because it's mostly conservative pundits coming out talking about like why there's like what is with this rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. And it's like, I'm not spending a lot of time on college campuses, so I don't know how true that actually is, whether or not it's legitimate anti-Semitism. But when you have a college president who can't say that calling for the genocide of Jews is harassment under your bylaws, when you've been talking about how words are violence for the past 6 years, I understand why people come to that conclusion.
Yeah,
it makes complete sense to me.
To all these students, I don't think it's the rise of anti-Semitism. It's just the rise of the current thing.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean?
I actually wholeheartedly agree with that statement.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just the rise of the current thing. They're outraged about this. They're outraged about that. You got a bunch of these kids in these elitist colleges who grew up in homes that were the perfect, pristine, leave it to Beaver household in most cases, where their parents are both making $200K each, and they're spending their weekends and country club fucking private lakes and wakeboarding with their friends. And then all of a sudden they're released from their shelter of their parents and going to these colleges. And there were a bunch of other kids who were doing the same thing. And then all of a sudden they're getting a little bit older and they're noticing the news. And then all of a sudden bulletins are being posted on the walls. And then all of a sudden they're outraged about this current thing. Give it a month, they'll be outraged about the next current thing. Watch how fast the outrage and everything that happened with this before and after. And guess what? Absolutely nothing is going to be different.
Nope. And ultimately, what is this AP article actually saying? It's saying,
how dare conservatives dig into people's past?
Conservatives are
when
mean
liberals
and
have been doing it for years.
Conservatives are mean and racist. That's it. Like we don't have to take this plagiarism stuff seriously because conservatives are mean and racist. In fact, I want to just play this for you because it is, I mean, of course, I'm sorry, folks. Take it with a grain of salt. Just please stay with me here. This is actually a Fox News mashup. But I'm going to find it here. Where did I put this? Here we go. Fox News Supercut. Here we go.
And of course, liberal pundits are going to bat for Gay.
Fucking Jesse Waters. God damn it.
What happened to Claudine Gay was mob pressure.
There is this sort of open war on Black progress, Black history. Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard University, at least up until she resigned, is now the latest casualty of that.
There very much is a racial component.
I don't think it's fair to say all of her critics were racist, but certainly a few of them were.
It looks as though she was targeted. The fact that she's a Black woman and the first person who is a Black American to lead Harvard only added to their thirst to dethrone her.
So they can't, this is the issue right here, right? They can't defend the merits of the criticism against her. So they pivot to the fact that conservatives are mean and racist.
Dan, this makes me so fucking angry. This makes me so goddamn angry. And let me tell you why. All right. At the risk of sounding like that guy that goes, well, I have Black family, or before you
continue, Corey, because you have to preface everything that you say. Are you a conservative?
No.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to pee while you go.
All right, because this is why it makes me so fucking angry. Is I've seen real racism. I've seen real bigotry. I've seen real nasty shit being said. When you see it, even as a white person, when you see it in someone's eyes, when they're looking at someone just because of the color of their skin and them not knowing that I'm with them in a store, and then all of a sudden their tone changing when they realize I'm with that Black person and them talking to me differently than they talk to that Black person. When you look at the systematic racism that has happened in our country, that we're not perfect yet, but we have come a far cry from fucking redlining and we're working on gerrymandering and Jim Crow laws and segregation. And when you see or when you hear people in a bar actually being racist, when someone is fired for their incompetence and then you immediately call it racism, all that does is take away the strength of that word that is supposed to have the power of the same thing as calling someone a motherfucker. Like that word of calling someone a racist is supposed to have weight to it. It's supposed to be a word that when it is said, it gives you a recoil like, ooh, oh, that person's racist. But then all of a sudden we're turning this word and we're milquetoasting it and we're watering it down to be this word that is something as simple as, oh, you dumb idiot, or you stupid idiot. We're completely taking away the power of a racist away from it because of the fact that it's just being spread around like hot butter on a piece of toast. I don't fucking know, dude. But it pisses me off when everything, like all of the things that aren't racist are being called racist. It's muddying the conversation to where when the things that are really racist, now those things that are really being racist are being equivalent to the things that aren't racist. And then someone's going to go, well, I guess it isn't that bad.
So to piggyback on that, to everything you just said, do you remember like when we were kids, right? And you would hear somebody older than you, probably a Gen Xer at that point, or definitely a boomer, constantly like you heard it when it came to like Rodney King. You heard it when it came to like when Tupac got beat up in California.
Before he got shot, when he got beat up.
Right, when he got beat up by the cops in California. You heard it from like white boomers and even some older Gen Xers that would be like, oh, they're just playing the race card. They're just playing the race card. They're trying to get away with doing something bad because they're playing the race card.
And we're giving these fuckers credence.
Corey, Yeah, now people are actually playing that fucking race card to avoid legitimate fucking criticism. And you're dealing with God, I hate quoting George W. Bush, but the bigotry of low expectations. That's what you have here. Claudine Gay was underqualified.
He didn't write that line, right?
I know he did, but he said it. But he said it, and everybody, whenever you use it to like one of these like goofy shit libs, that's what they always. Oh, you're quoting George W. Bush now. But yeah, it's sad that like there actually is a race card being played when most people want, or at least the critics of Claudine Gay and DEI and all this stuff, like just more of a meritocracy. And like, it's quite clear that she was underqualified. And I don't even care about that. I don't even care about that.
I'm going to spend $1 million to send my kid to Harvard. I don't give a shit if you're Indian, if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim. But I just want the highest qualified person there in charge to make sure my kid gets a decent education.
It doesn't even matter that she was underqualified, because people that are underqualified get hired and do a job all the time. It happens all the time.
I know a guy.
I'm not even you. I'm not. I'm not so much worried about being underqualified, but being underqualified and then finding out that you're plagiarizing articles, finding out that you're pushing a DEI agenda that we are pretty rapidly figuring out doesn't work. And then you want to go ahead and just say, well, conservatives are mean and racist. So that's the only reason we even found out about her plagiarism. Never mind the fact that she did it.
Right.
Like, does that count? Does that count at all? That she did the thing that she's being accused of? And it's not like she was fired. It's not like she stepped down. And here's the last thing I'll say, because I feel like we're getting at a point where we got to end this episode. The last thing I wanted to say was that it's okay if you want, if Harvard or anybody else, if you want to hire somebody based on their race, you have every right to do that. You have every right to do that. Some could argue that it's prejudice, but whatever. If you want to hire somebody because they're Latino or they're gay or they're black,
don't double down on the race card when they get fired.
But when it doesn't work, and when it turns out to be a fucking disaster, you don't get to cry racism because they lost their job.
Right. Joe Biden doesn't get to cry racism.
Oh my God. Could you imagine if it was Barack Obama right now?
If Barack Obama botched, like Barack Obama, he's just, 100 years from now.
Let's be honest, though. Barack Obama would have been doing at least a better job of keeping the ship afloat as compared to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Yes.
Medicare for all was a flop. He drone bombed thousands of children and just killed them. Brown kids, not black, but brown.
Yeah, they got to be brown.
He was just a mediocre president. 100 years from now, it's just going to be he was the first black president. That's all he'll really be remembered by.
No, Court, you don't have to sugarcoat it. He was a warmonger and a piece of shit, just like the rest of them. Fair. He was no different.
But that isn't dictated by the color of his skin, Dan.
Absolutely not. It just shows that he's just like the rest of them. Just
Obama, just like the rest of us, bro.
I am actually so glad. So, like, when I wrote the title for this, I was actually going to go back and change it. All the title for this live stream, do you know what it is?
Harvard.
It's just Harvard. It's perfect because we have to end this fucking episode. Oh man, some other things that we did not get to was Israel's constitutional crisis, and I'm actually glad we're saving this one. The CIA is being sued by some of Julian Assange's buds
because the CIA is doing to Assange what they're claiming Assange did. Espionage.
Oh, can't have that.
Oh, and then the other shoe falls.
All right, Corey. This has been fun. I'm glad we had that conversation, even though we only got to one topic.
That's
why don't
great.
you tell the people where they can find us?
That was a good one. Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com, and we can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today. And you know what? Tell a friend. I saw 2 viewers in here hanging out the entire fucking time. If you like it, subscribe. I just
brought,
a friend.
I just brought Bell into the feed because he was
he's falling
on the
asleep.
job.
No, I got my cheerleading back. Bro.
Hey, you know what? He's
cheerleading.
like Homer Simpson. When it matters, when the meltdown's about to happen, he stops it. He was falling asleep, but you know what? We did only reach out to him once.
I wasn't falling. I promise.
And I texted. I said in the show at probably about 8:33. Bell, how many colleges are in the country? And then 8:34, boom, 5,999.
He was there. He is. He is our Homer Simpson. Because I was gonna say of the hundreds of
don't disparage him. He's our Jamie.
of the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we pay you a year to do this job, Bell, and you're falling asleep in front of your Christmas tree.
We're okay with it.
I still do a great job.
Look at him. Look at that meritocracy in the background. He's got a picture of Rosa Parks
and the Gadsden flag.
That's right.
No, it's not. It's fucking Beavis, though.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing.
What's it say? It
says, "Are you threatening me?"
Are you threatening me?
So let me ask you this, Corey. The flag that Bell has behind him, that is the Beavis version of the Gadsden flag, and the actual Gadsden flag, is the message any different?
Not at all.
Not at all. It's the same message. So there you go. So
no steppy on snake, Dan.
Oh, it bite me.
No step on snake.
Oh, anyway, that's been it. We're done. We're done here.
And we're out of here. Until next week, guys. See you around the same time on Wednesday.
Yeah, for Bell the Bodysnatcher. He's been Corey Walsh.
He's been Dan Griffin.
It's been Libservative. And we are out of here. Go hard.